I was going to make a Facebook status about what I'm feeling right now, but I was like, I might as well make a video because it's a little more efficient. Some huge things are definitely happening, and I'm just feeling incredibly excited about it. Like, mostly a lot with what Bernie Sanders is doing in the United States, and just hearing him speak the truth. And when somebody starts to speak the truth, everything else just sounds absolutely ridiculous. So you're starting to see Hillary and other people actually repeating what Bernie's saying because they can't get away with their bullshit lies anymore. But just in particular, I didn't watch all the debate last night, but just some of the things that Bernie was saying was just like, he's starting to build some momentum, and it's just so exciting. And it's happening. Like, it is happening. Everything that we've all been talking about, you know, making the shift, reclaiming the power for the people, like, it is literally happening right now. People are actually waking up and realizing that they've been living in this bullshit life. Like, of course we have to work hard. Of course we have to still do all of these things. But we don't need to be trapped and working our entire lives for pretty much nothing. I think we're actually moving into freedom and creativity where people can actually begin to do what they want to do. We started up our own center here in Halifax called The Center, and it's a healing center. So we offer, you know, all sorts of alternative therapies and yoga and meditation. But it was like a nightmare to kind of get going, all these things that we kept bumping into. And because the system itself was not at all set up to allow people to start their own business. And we had to start very slow. We didn't take out any loans, but we did it one step at a time until it finally built into this thing. And it's still building, it's still going, but it's really hard, and there's no way I would have been able to do it by myself. And luckily I had 5 other people who were very strongly on board with the same things I wanted. But I think this is going to be the norm going forward. We're actually going to be able to create a society where people can pursue these things instead of working 40 hours a week at McDonald's. Not to take anything away from that, but, you know, if you want to work there, then work there. But instead of people feeling like they're stuck having to choose a job, people are going to begin to start making their own jobs. And it's really, I just can't explain how actually excited I am about it. It's the shift that's everybody's been talking about. And, you know, the whole thing that went down with 2012, for some of you who don't know about that stuff, obviously we heard it was in the papers, the world was going to end, blah, 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 blah. But what it actually was, you know, the Mayan calendars, everything was predicting this date to be something huge and significant. And it was. But what actually happened was that it was a momentum shift. So we went from basically 49% of the world kind of still stuck to, you know, not waking up, I guess, to realizing their own power, to 50%, so then it was even. And then the idea of 2012 was that we finally cracked into the 51%. So the majority of people in the world were waking up. I don't know if the percentages are exactly correct in that sense, but it was, the momentum has shifted in the opposite direction. So it's not in the hands of the elite. It's not in the hands of the corrupt. It's not in the hands of the giant corporations. They still have a huge chunk of it, and there's still a lot of work to do. But that's what we're seeing with people like Bernie Sanders. He's been doing this for 60 years. He's been saying the same thing for 60 years, man. But we're finally hearing him. People are finally listening because we're finally sick and tired of this whole game that we've been kind of playing, working our lives away for nothing, basically. And so with 2012, what that represented was the shift and moving towards this big change. So it was honestly just a tiny shift, but in the grand scheme of things, it was like the you know, almost the straw that broke the camel's back, or at least it was the straw that was like making it feel quite heavy on the camel's back, and the camel being the oppressive system that we kind of live in right now. And it's huge to say that, like, the system does not have to be overthrown. It needs to be changed. And people like Bernie Sanders, that's what they're doing. He's not trying to overthrow the entire system. He's going to change it radically. But to overthrow everything would just throw it all into chaos. So a lot of people think that we have to destroy the system, and I disagree. I think that we need to change it from within. And because the system, it has a lot of great things. It's almost like a religion, in a sense, you know. We don't need to destroy religion because of all the bad things it's done, but we can take a lot of the good things from it. And so I think that's what we can do with this change. And it all begins with us. It really, really does begin with us. We did it in Canada. We got Stephen Harper out of power, like in a monumental election, because the youth stood up and voted. The young people stood up and voted. And we stood up for what we wanted. We don't want to be in this oppressive regime anymore, like Stephen Harper was creating here in Canada. And we don't want, and as we're seeing now in America, we want somebody who you know, says the truth. And even if Bernie doesn't win, it's still, his impact is going to be felt forever. So the fact that he stood up and said everything that he said, he's been saying it forever, but now that he's actually being heard by, you know, because of not even mainstream media, but because the internet, people took control. It wasn't the mainstream media. They're still blasting him. It was the people that made Bernie popular, and he's getting millions and millions of dollars from the people, because the people are stronger than the system itself. We are the system itself. Eventually, you know, hopefully we will move into, you know, a collective, an earth collective, all literally living together. And a lot of people say, oh man, that's like dreamer and then all this stuff. And yes, it is, but this dream is coming true, and it's happening now, and we are living it, and we're all responsible for it. You don't have to do anything, but you can, and that's the most important thing.